So, what is Nutanix? I kind of set up some allure there by, talking about Nutanix and running VMware on top of Nutanix. That sounds so strange. It's very confusing. I know less. I feel like I'm more confused about Nutanix than I was before. That might be what you're thinking. So, if somebody asks you, if I ask the question again, what I'd want you to come away with, what is Nutanix? Nutanix is a cloud platform software. What does that even mean? Everybody's a cloud platform software. Your Cisco Call Manager is a cloud platform software now. So your Cisco sales rep will tell you. So what is a cloud platform software? So to use a frame of reference, look at Nutanix less as VMware and more as Amazon or AWS, Azure, or GCP. That's what Nutanix is. What's different is if you migrate to AWS or Azure or GCP, when you migrate there, that's where you live. And those are the tools that you're using, right? It's totally proprietary. It's up there. That's where you live, right? It has to be in their cloud where their availability zones are. Same thing as Azure or GCP. Nutanix is a cloud platform software that deploys right in your data center. It can also deploy in their data center or multiple of their data centers or multiple of their data centers and your data center and an MSP's data center at the same time. It can deploy it all of your edge sites and your primary data center and your DR data center and replicate and communicate between all of them. Those are things you can't do with the hyperscalers. You can migrate to AWS, but what if you got all these remote sites that need local compute and storage resources? Well, you can't put AWS there, right? Well, you can put Nutanix there. You can put Nutanix anywhere. And so you get the benefits of the cloud platform. So what about the hypervisor piece, right? So that's what Nutanix is. We're a cloud platform. What about the hypervisor piece? You'll see ESXi and Hyper-V as options there. So when customers would buy Nutanix before the acquisition of VMware by Broadcom, they were buying the cloud platform, and they were running their own hypervisor on it most of the time. They would say, hey, I have a storage and a server refresh coming. The stars are aligning there, and I'm going to swap out the way that I operate my storage network, my compute layer. I'm going to swap that out for Nutanix, for a cloud platform, and I'm going to run my hypervisor on top of that. Now, those customers were fully entitled and licensed to AHV. They didn't have to use it. We were like, hey, swap to our cloud platform, keep that vendor you like. Now, because of Broadcom's acquisition of VMware, the fact that we have an enterprise-grade, mature and tested and fully capable hypervisor, customers are like, okay, I actually want to start the conversation at hypervisor and not start the conversation at cloud platform. The reason that we have an enterprise-grade hypervisor is because why wouldn't we if you're a cloud platform? If you migrate to AWS, where do your VMs run? There. They have a hypervisor. Azure, right? So you have EC2 instances in AWS. Right? You have Azure, you have instances in Azure. GCP. A good hypervisor is inherent to a cloud platform. So of course, we have an enterprise-grade hypervisor. It's inherent to a cloud platform. And then you get infrastructure choice, and this is just what I talked about. Not only can you run it anywhere, you can run it on just about any darn thing at this point. There are some hardware compatibility. There's a hardware compatibility list, and sometimes it doesn't always work out. But that list is bigger than it's ever been, and it's growing faster than it's ever grown. So the reason I have these two separated out is at the compute layer, Dell, all the hyperscalers, Lenovo, HP, Cisco namely. I know we're here partnered with Cisco and Network Today, and I do want to hang up on Cisco because more than any of our partners, Cisco is leaning in. Cisco's leaning in and saying, hey, from an HCI perspective, from a cloud platform perspective, from a strategic perspective, Cisco's buying in. We have more compatibility with Cisco across the board than we've ever had, and they're leaning in and they're rapidly accelerating their adoption for all of their virtual appliances, you name it, to land on Nutanix more now than ever, and landed on their data center platforms as well, their unified computing, UCS. So I say that to just throw a shameless plug out there for Cisco. They're leaning in hard, for sure, and the Cisco reps would validate that. And then what about NetApp, Pure, and Dell? If you know anything about Nutanix, we were HCI. We were node-based, web scale architecture. Your compute, your storage, all of that were in basically servers, right? They were in nodes. They were all condensed. Well, now Nutanix saw the market need and said, you know what? Customers are in a position where they have heavy investment into things like, into storage platforms like Pure and NetApp and Dell. We need to meet them where they're at. We need to do a better job meeting them where they're at. So we've brought in full integrations with these platforms. NetApp, the other, Dell and Everpure, now Everpure, formerly Pure Storage, they've rebranded. We're fully generally available with those now. Those have been tested, betaed, brought to market in high stakes environments with real customers. Those are ready to go, selling it like hotcakes. NetApp is in that stage now. Later this year, it will go fully GA. We just announced that. And later this calendar year, it will go fully GA. We just announced that. So that's part of the meeting you where you're at story for Nutanix, is meeting you where you're at from an infrastructure perspective. When it comes to being a cloud platform software, this is actually my least favorite slide. I hate busy slides, and this is a busy slide. So I'll try to keep it distilled, if you will. If we're going to be a cloud platform, which we are, and we're going to serve enterprise customers, which represents the overwhelming majority of our revenue, our very large customers with complex workloads and high-stakes environments, we have to have enterprise-grade services. So on top of our base licensing, which is our Nutanix Cloud Infrastructure licensing, that's the base licensing you have to run our software. On top of that, you have all kinds of options. So a few notable, right, in terms of being strategic. Our Kubernetes platform. Is anybody here in your organization, whether it's development or whatnot, seeing containers, rise up a little bit? Are you becoming more container aware, seeing a little bit more in your organizations? So containers are coming. You've been hearing that since like 2015. So I understand I'm 11 years in repetition of containers are coming. But they are. And there's a couple areas I'd actually like to throw out there that we're seeing it in the market. One area is organically or inorganic. It's your software vendors that deliver your critical applications that run your business. They're saying, hey, the next version that I deliver to you will be in a container. So you will be hosting it as a container. We're seeing that heavily in Fiserv right now. Or FinServ, sorry, Fiserv. Fiserv is FinServ. In financial services right now. Fiserv's, I said Fiserv is a Freudian slip. Fiserv is delivering the latest versions of their application in container format. And I said, you will be hosting containers now. And you're like, I guess I got to figure out containers. So we're seeing that a lot. And then also the labor market. A lot of the young talent coming out of school now, they're not even getting taught VMs in school right now. VMs is like foreign language to them. They're getting taught, heavily data analytics, but they're also getting taught containers. They're going to be more container native. That's the skills they bring to market. Those are the skills that they would like to adopt. So some of that is more organic, growth of containers. But anyways, you want to be in a situation where you're prepared for a future where you have more containers than you have VMs. We have our own Kubernetes platform for this called NKP. You can host your entire environment, day 0 from deployment all the way through day 2 operations, management, and orchestration of your Kubernetes environment to manage containers. And what's interesting, and this is different from a competitive landscape perspective, is you don't have to buy all of this when you buy Nutanix. You can start right here in NCI. You can also start right there at NKP. You can buy our Kubernetes platform and you can run it in your AWS environment. You can run it in your ESXi environment. First time I ever sold it was to a customer who their renewal for Broadcom was a ways out. They weren't ready for that, but they did have a container need, so they bought our Kubernetes platform and they deployed it right into their ESXi environment. So the modular nature of our software model has been really appealing to customers who are in a situation where suddenly, especially at the virtualization layer with that partner, with that platform, they lost their modularity. Suddenly you got to buy it all in large bundles. Our enterprise AI, which is model serving from day 0 to day 2. Plumb your data in, serve your models against that data, serve your models against those workloads. Data to the model serving, to the workflows, to the workflow layer. All can be done in our NAI platform, and our NAI platform lives in a container. It lives in NKP. Actually, it can live in any container. It could live in EKS, AKS, GKS, Tanzu if you're using it, right? It can live anywhere, right? It just needs to live in a container. Unified storage for file and object, unstructured data, you can buy a Nutanix cluster that's just dedicated to that. We just brought on a sports team local to the state of Indiana. They throw and kick footballs is what they do. And their media team had enormous file footprint. And they needed somewhere to put that was higher performing, it was easy to manage, and that they could go rip and look. And because what they like to do is bring in old clips, put together things for drafts, for you name it. And they wanted something that they could do all that really easily. They brought in a Nutanix cluster that's just dedicated for unstructured data using our Nutanix Unified Storage Platform. And they, by the way, bought that separately than NCI. So I say that all to say that if you're starting right here with NCI, and all you need is a cloud platform with basic virtualization, we'll meet you there. Love to have that business. If you want to do it all, if you got needs to touch all those things and you want to be strategic, we can meet you where you're going too. The last couple things I'll tie off with here is, can you bet your business on it? I asked that question earlier. Is anybody in here familiar with Net Promoter Scores? Raise your hand if you're familiar with a Net Promoter Score. We got some Net Promoter Score familiarity here. That's great. So if you don't know, you're essentially graded on a scale of -100 to 100. 50 people love you, 50 people hate you, you're a 0. Congrats. And the way that it's measured on a scale of 1 to 10 on a per customer basis is if you're a 0 to a 6, that's a detractor. I'll be honest, I would kind of love if somebody called me a 6. I'd be pretty pleased if somebody's like, you're a 6. I'd be like, thanks, man. I like this guy. This guy thinks I'm a 6. I'd be pretty proud of being a 6. But in Net Promoter Score land, 6 is a thumbs down. 6 is no good. 9 and 10 is the only thing that's good. So when we send out our customer surveys, for 10 years straight, Nutanix has been 90 plus. Competing against our industry partners, we're number 1 by far. I think second place is actually technically Pure. Pure Storage is like in the 70s or low 80s. And they have a stellar reputation with most customers for that reason. Across industry, you see Tesla, Nutanix, Costco, Starbucks. We can all be honest. Tesla, Costco, Starbucks, those are kind of cults anyways. And I don't say that negatively. I'm in at least 2 of those cults. 2 of those cults. Yeah, I'm a proud member of at least 2 of those cults to the full extent that I could be. So that's what we're competing against, across industry. So you can trust Nutanix. So I hope that you guys came away with today that a good way to approach evaluating alternatives, which it seems like many of you are doing now. And I hope that you came away knowing, okay, I think I know what Nutanix is. And if I'm going to evaluate Nutanix, I know what I'm signing up for to evaluate. So any questions? Anything you want me to call out? Do you want me to talk about the Cisco integration specifically?
Sure, yes.
Like I did yesterday?
Yeah, sure.
So the last thing I'll tie off with, if you have Cisco Compute today, how does Nutanix integrate with Cisco Compute today? So UCS really comes in basically 2 flavors. Well, it comes in more flavors than that, but I'm going to distill it down to 2. You have your C series rack mount, and you have your B series blade and chassis format. So if your rack mount, so long as it's not too old, so long as it's still in support, there's a decent chance that Nutanix will support that. You probably have to make a couple component changes. You might have to add some components. You'll certainly have to add drives, storage drives, unless you have an external storage solution that's approved. But there's a decent chance you'll be in compatibility. What about blade and chassis format, the B series? So if your blade and chassis format, again, if it's on our compatibility list, and you have an approved external storage because blades don't have onboard storage. The chassis doesn't have onboard storage. The blade and chassis format depends on external storage. So if you have Pure Storage, if you have Dell, and if you have time to hold out for NetApp coming, you can deploy Nutanix onto your blade and chassis format with external storage behind it. You can do that. This is all very new stuff, but it's very tested. It would not have been brought to market if it wasn't tested in high-stakes environments and brought that way. Also, and this is worth pointing out, I didn't point this out yesterday, but Cisco and Pure have a combined solution called FlashStack. They also have a version of FlashStack that comes with Nutanix. So you can deploy Nutanix pre-validated right onto a Cisco Pure FlashStack solution. So in case you're looking at that option, which is kind of a converged, kind of a hyper-converged cloud platform play, we have a joint solution, and that's really just a testament to Cisco's buy-in. Cisco says, hey, these joint solutions we're coming out with, we'll send them on board with Nutanix already. So we brought on Dell first, technically, with PowerFlex. No one has PowerFlex. Raise your hand if you have PowerFlex or have heard of PowerFlex. PowerStore is now GA, but Pure was the big one. Pure was, and it's got to be a two-way street, because it is, to make the storage integration work, we didn't want to have some weak API plugin that had limited and degraded services from Nutanix and storage vendor. It's a true full integration between the two solutions. So Pure is a true full integration. PowerStore is a true full integration. NetApp will be a true full integration. And yes, there are more coming. Those are the ones that are public. I cannot share unless the others unless you're under NDA. That hasn't stopped those storage vendors from sharing it though, because they're sharing it like crazy. So if you hear it from them, you heard it from them. But yes, there are more coming, for sure. I would imagine that portfolio grows dramatically. Those three were brought on in the last 12 months, for reference. And we're never integrated before. So there are more coming. Did you have one in mind?
We use Electra.
HP Electra, yeah. The only hang-up I would say possibly with HP Electra coming is that HP has some quasi-competitive platforms, and they own Zerto, which we have a quasi-competitive platform, replication platform too. So, but I don't know, maybe. I don't know. They keep us in the dark about it until it's public, intentional. But I would say yes, decidedly yes, the way that it's trending. I bet we bring on a bunch more. And HP's probably roadmapped.